Hey guys, this is Jake Autistic TCG and welcome back to the Ozarks. Today we have a very special video for episode 2 of Sealed Only Battle of the Gods. Now, in the last episode we had a slight mishap with the video recording and stuff. Okay, so today I am going to be opening up 3 copies of the Ice Barrier structure deck and 1 copy of the Charmer structure deck in attempts to upgrade my deck's consistency. If you guys want to see more videos like this, hit that subscribe button, turn on notification bells whenever I post another video, and let's get right into the video. Got the structure decks. Let's open up. Alright, I'm going to open up one of them. In the back we got all the strategies, Rage of Raw and all that stuff. So I'm going to open up one of each structure decks to show off what's in both structure decks. Sorry for the loud noises that the dog's kind of under my arms. Off, we have Revealer of the Ice Barrier, one of the newer monsters. So this one, when you control an Ice Barrier monster, your opponent cannot tribute summon. You can only use each effect of Revealer of the Ice Barrier once per turn. You can discard 1 card, special summon 1 Ice Barrier tuner from your deck. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except water monsters. If you would discard or send a card from the hand to the graveyard to activate an Ice Barrier monster effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead of one of those cards. Control an Ice Barrier monster, you can banish this card from your graveyard, special summon 1 Ice Barrier token, a level 1 like water monster. Then we have, so that's the second new card, and then we've got Zujin of the Ice Barrier. You can tribute this card, special summon 1 level 5 or higher Ice Barrier monster from your hand. This card is in your graveyard except the turn it was sent to this turn. You can target 1 level 3 or higher water monster you control. Reduce its level by exactly 2. If you do, special summon this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. So we got kind of like a mediocre spell card. Mediocre like special summon from hand. Next up is Winds of the Ice Barrier. Winds of the Ice Barrier is tribute any number of Ice Barrier monsters, special summon from your deck as many level 4 and lower Ice Barrier monsters with different names from each other. During your main phase, except the turn of sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard, target one of those Ice Barrier monsters that was banished or in your graveyard, add it to your hand. You can only use the effect of Winds over the Ice Barrier once per turn. So these are some of the new cards, and then we have the final card of the structure deck, which is none other than Trishula Zero Dragon of the Ice Barrier. 1 tuner and plus 2 non-tuner monsters. When this card is synchro summon, you can banish up to 3 cards your opponent controls holds. If this synchro summon card its owner control is destroyed by opponent's card, you can special summon 1 Trishula Dragon of the Ice Barrier from your extra deck or graveyard. Its attack becomes 3,300. Then half the attack of any face-up monsters your opponent currently controls. Also negate their effects. You can only use the effect of Trishula Zero Dragon of the Ice Barrier once per turn. So this is the new boss monster of the deck. And then we have the reprints. We have the Trishula reprint, which allows you to banish any cards. So this is the other one they're talking about. We have Gungner, 1 tuner and 1 non-tuner water monster. Once per turn, you can discard up to 2 cards in the graveyard, then target the same number of cards your opponent controls and destroy them. You have Brionic. You can discard any number of cards to the graveyard and target the same number of cards your opponent controls, return those targets to the hand. Then you have Deloran, Tiger King of the Ice Barrier. Any number of other face-up cards you control, return those targets to the hand, and if you do, this card gains 500 attack for each card returned to the hand by this effect until the end of the turn. You only use the effect of Deloran once per turn. So these are the synchro monsters of the deck. I'm going to leave it like that so you can actually see the rest of the cards. I'm sorry for the quality. I'm being both cameraman and stuff, and I don't know how to focus and all that. So these are some of the these are some of the newer cards. Then we have General Wayne of the Ice Barrier, one of the other new ones. It spells and traps sent to the field Sent from the field to the opponent's graveyard or banished instead. You can only use these effects of General Wayne The Ice Barrier once returned. If your opponent controls a monster you control an Ice Barrier monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can add one Ice Barrier spell or trap from the deck to hand. So this searches out your spell and trap cards from the deck. Then we have Hexa Spirit of the Ice Barrier. I'm actually reading them all off because these are new cards to me. I'm sorry if it sounds weird because I've never actually seen these cards before. So forgive me for my if I mispronounce some of these names. Then we have Hexa Spirit of the Ice Barrier. While you control another Ice Barrier monsters your opponent controls loses 500 attack and defense. During your main phase, you can send one level 3 or lower Ice Barrier monster from your deck to the graveyard, and if you do, this card's level becomes the same as that monster until the end of the turn. So this card is technically the Foolish Burial of the deck, and it's also a level 1 tuner. Then we have Blizzard, Defender of the Ice Barrier. This card's destroyed by battle. Sent to the graveyard, you get a draw card. You have Chiromancer, the Ice Barrier. While you control an Ice Barrier monster, level 4 or higher monsters you control cannot declare an attack. Prior of the Ice Barrier, if you control an Ice Barrier monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. You cannot special summon any level 5 or higher monsters the turn you summon this way. You contribute this card, target one Ice Barrier monster in your graveyard, except prior, special summon this card. While you control another Ice Barrier monster, monsters your opponent controls cannot declare an attack if their attack is greater than or equal to this card's defense. Warlock of the Ice Barrier. While you control another Ice Barrier monster, both players must set spell cards before activating them and cannot activate them until their next turn. So we have some very powerful like floodgates. So these cards are all built in floodgates. Okay, so this is interesting. Once per turn, you can send one Ice Barrier monster from your hand to the graveyard. Neither player can activate spell cards until the end of your next turn while this monster is face up on the field. Strategist of the Ice Barrier. Once per turn, you can send one Ice Barrier monster from your hand to the graveyard and draw one card. So these are these are technically like the then we have Dan Sojo, the Ice Barrier. This card is normal flip summon, change it to defense position. Ice Barrier monsters you control cannot be destroyed by spell or trap cards. General Rao of the Ice Barrier. When your opponent monster activates the effect on the field, they must discard one card or the effect is negated. So this card's an act of walking floodgate. So either they have to either they discard a card from their hand or they lose the effect of that card. When your opponent controls four or more cards than you can special summon this card from your hand. Your opponent can only activate one spell/trap card each turn. General Glanta of the Ice Barrier. Once per turn during the end phase, you can target one Ice Barrier monster in your graveyard except General Gantala, special summon it. Then General Gennard of the Ice Barrier. So this is the last one. During your main phase, you can normal summon one Ice Barrier monster in addition to your normal summoner set, and it's a level 8. So I'm seeing the major consistency of the Ice Barrier monsters. So that's it for the Ice Barrier monster cards from the structure deck. So you get practically the entire engine of Ice Barrier engine reprinted in this, which is actually really big. I never actually played against Ice Barriers, let alone any deck that utilized Ice Barrier like cards. So this will be an interesting kind of concept of putting into the deck. And the fact that a lot of them are spellcaster actually kind of helps consistency of the deck a lot. Because I am running some spellcasters and stuff. So we got Gen X Controller and Gen X Undyne as a reprint. So this is actually, I think, like one of the weird cards that technically like turbo out Crystal and Halki Fibrax. So both of these cards turbo out Halki Fibrax. This is one of the combo cards for it. Then we have Aqua Spirit, special summoned by Banishing one water monster in the graveyard during opponent's standby phase. We target one monster your opponent control, change that battle position. So this is technically an old school like goat card. So that's it. So we got an old school goat card too in here. So that's interesting. Because now we got light spirit, dark spirit, and now we have technically completed the entire spirit lineup. Then we have Duke Frog and Rodentonen. So I've also never actually played Toads either, so I don't know how these work. Field, well, it becomes Death Frog. While in the field, monsters your opponent controls cannot target monsters for a tap except this one. When this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add one frog monster from your deck to your hand. Except Duke Frog cannot be used for a synchro material. This card becomes Death Frog. While in the field, this card is in the graveyard, you can banish one frog monster from your graveyard, special summon this card. So these cards kind of like revive themselves. Then we have Fishboard Launcher, cannot be used as a synchro material except for the synchro summon of a water monster. If you have monsters in the graveyard other than Fishboard Launcher and all of them are water, you can special summon this card from your graveyard but banish it when it leaves the field. So this card kind of revives itself. Then you have Moon Glacia, the Elemental Lord. I actually remember getting this one in the things by having exactly 5 water monsters of this card. You can special summon, you can discard 2 cards from your opponent's hand. You could only use the effect of Glacia's turn. If this card is destroyed, you can't activate, you can't attack or anything for the rest of the turn. Then you have Silent Angler. If you control a water monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. You cannot special summon monsters from your hand for the rest of the turn. So you got kind of another level 4 extender, but this level 4 extender is complete dog shit. Okay. Freezing Chain. Then we get to the spell card. We've got Freezing Chains of the Ice Barrier. When you activate this card, you can target one level 4 or lower Ice Barrier monster in your graveyard. Special summon it when you control 3 or more Ice Barrier monsters. Ice Barrier monsters you control are unaffected by the activated effects of opponent's monsters that were special summoned from the extra deck. You can only activate Freezing Chains once per turn. Then we have Magic Triangle of the Ice Barrier. Reveal 3 Ice Barrier monsters with different names in your hand. And target one card your opponent controls. Destroy that target. If you do, special summon one Ice Barrier monster from your hand. Medallion of the Ice Barrier. Add one Ice Barrier monster from your deck to your hand. So we have an actual Rhoda in the deck. Now that's actually huge because there's a lot, because these decks can get very difficult to play against. And having an actual reinforcement of the army is huge. Then we have Mirror of the Ice Barrier. During this turn, each time a card is banished from your hand, field, or graveyard by your opponent's activated monster effect, apply the equivalent effect based on the cards that are banished. Hand, banish up 2 random cards from your opponent's hand. Field, banish up 2 cards your opponent controls. Graveyard, banish up to 2 cards from your opponent's graveyard. Okay, so there's a lot. So that card's actually really good against Eldritch. So that's actually a good card against Eldritch because Eldritch has a card that vanishes. Alright. Then we have Salvage. Target 2 water monsters for 1500 or less attack in your graveyard. Add those targets to your hand. Target 1 level 3 or lower fish, sea serpent, or aqua monster in your graveyard. Special summon it in defense position. So we have a Monster Reborn. In addition to our Monster Reborn, we have Wear Off Thou, which is technically, I think, like a bootleg 1-for-1, if I'm not mistaken. And that's it for the spell cards. Alright, now for the trap cards. A Pointer of the Red Lotus. Now I heard this card was actually was highly used inside a lot of competitive decks. Pay 2,000 life points to reveal 1 card. Reveal their entire hand. Look at it, opponent's card, and if you do, discard 1 card from their hand. Oh, banish 1 card from their hand until your opponent's next end phase. So they lose a card in their hand. That's pretty disgusting. We have Phoenix Chain. I think everyone kind of knows what this one does. It just pretty much stops the monster. And then we have is banned, which is if a non-water monster is normal or special summoned while you control a water monster, change that special summon monster to defense position. Then we have Mind Drain. Activate this card by paying 1,000 life points. Negate the effects of cards from the hand. We have Heavy Storm Duster. Target 2 spell traps on the field. Destroy them. You cannot connect the battle phase this turn. Then we have Crackdown. Activate by target 1 monster your opponent controls. Take control of that monster while you control that monster. It cannot attack or activate its effects. When that monster leaves the field, destroy this card. Then we have Terror of Trishula. Apply these effects in sequence depending on the number of ice barriers synchro monsters you control with different names. Number 1, banish 1 card your opponent controls. Number 2, if there are 2, banish 1 card from your opponent's graveyard. And if there's 3, banish 1 random card from your opponent's hand. When your opponent activates a card or effect that targets an ice barrier synchro monster you control, you can banish this card from your graveyard and negate that effect. So this card's technically built-in protection, but it's a trap card. However, being able to technically banish your opponent's cards from your graveyard is actually pretty nice. So that's it for the Ice Barrier deck. So that's an interesting deck that I technically just looked over. I've actually have owned these ultra rare Trishula, but I've never actually played Ice Barriers. So this will be an interesting deck to implement into the deck. Now we get to open up 1 copy of the Charmer Structure deck. But you know what? Let me check to see if the recording thing's still on. Yep, it's still on. So, opening up the other box now. This is the Nyata and Aquas or something. I don't know what the water one's called. So we got the token. We got Familiar Possessed Asua. So we got another. So I got a playset of Asua and Ultra Rare, which is actually rather interesting. I have the Awakened Possessed Nefarious Archfiend. I actually didn't open up 3 of these. I actually opened up 3 of these like earlier. I got 2 copies of Asua and Ultra Rare and the Alternate Art Ultra Rare. So now I have a playset. We have Awakened Possessed Great 8 Inari Fire. We have Grand Spiritual Art, and we have Spirit Charmer. So these are the cards. So this one's special. So the Earth and Fire ones special summon themselves from the deck or from the hand, and they technically are like things. We have the Field Spell, which automatically negates the first effect your opponent activates every turn, which is technically kind of huge. So you technically have a deck full of floodgates, then you have another deck that has a Field Spell that's also a floodgate. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Then we have the Regeki. Now that's actually a big one. Then we have Possessed Partnerships for the newer cards, which is technically like a Call of the Haunted, but also a free pop. So you have technically kind of like some so you have a trap card that actually corresponds with the deck. Huge. Alright, continuing on, we have Asua, we have Iria, Kenyatta, and Within, along with the little guys. We got Nefarious Archfiend Eater Variousness, so these are the original Charmers. We have Gigabyte, we have Inari Fire, and Ran Ryu. Technically to go along with the attributes. So this one pops a card and I believe revive itself. This one, it gets destroyed, summons any of the other 3. This one revives back any of them from the graveyard, and the fire one inflicts burn damage. Then the original Charmer, these ones, the old school Charmers, pretty much you flip them up and you can target a monster with various attribute and take control of it. Then we have Sleeper, Rella, and Luna. So Sleeper, it pretty much allows you to technically bounce a card back to your hand, and then it has an effect where it forces your opponent to bounce a card back from your hand, special summon the card from your hand. You have Rilla, is that it can target an equipped spell and practically attach it to itself. So this one was actually interesting because I was thinking about messing with this one for like an OTK, because this one automatically equips a quick equip spell to it, and it causes some things. And then Luna searches out any of the other Charmer pieces, as well as the other 2 Fairy Tale monsters, so you have the Searcher. Next up we have Witchcrafter Golem Aruru. So this is typically one of the big ones I was kind of looking for, because this is another boss monster. And considering the fact that the majority of the deck is spellcaster, it actually helps out a lot. Then we have Dark Dorado, which it is a pendulum monster, but it also is a searcher. We have Witch of the Black Forest, which is another searcher, monster searcher, generic searcher, but it technically can't search anything else for the rest of the turn. You have Denko Seka, which technically shuts down spell and trap cards. Then you have Effect Veiler to kind of finish off the things. Then we have the upgraded Charmer monsters. We have the upgraded Wind, upgraded Fire, upgraded Water, and upgraded Earth in their original art. So that's it for the monster lineup. For spell cards, we have Awakening of the Possessed, which is like one of the big cards that gives us monsters with different attributes, like a 300 attack boost. You have Secret Village of Spellcaster, shuts down like spell cards if your opponent doesn't control Spellcaster. Spellbook of Knowledge allows you to technically like draw some cards. It's technically like a Pot of Greed, but the cost of a Spellcaster monster. A Terraforming, which is actually huge because now I can have another way to search out Lair of Darkness from the deck. I have Book of Eclipse, Twin Twisters, and Dark Ruler No More. So I have a pretty solid like spell lineup here. So now I have multiple routes that I could take with the deck. I have technically 2 built-in floodgates in the deck. With an entire deck full of floodgates, plus the addition of the Slifer deck, I got myself a pretty solid deck lineup here. Now continuing on, we have Unpossessed, which essentially allows you to summon out the cards. Then we have the Spiritual Art, Trap cards, 1 for each attribute. Tribute to Water 1. Your opponent sends 1 card from the hand to the graveyard, so you have typically a second appointer, the Red Lotus. You have Fire, equal to that monster's original attack, and then you have Wind, which can bounce card on the bottom of your opponent's deck, and then you have Earth, which allows you to technically special summon back a level 4 Earth monster. Then you have Metaverse, which is another searcher. So you have 2 Terraformings in the deck, which is huge. Then you have Dimensional Barrier and Solemn Warning to finish off the deck. So I've just gone from playing with just the structure deck, with just the Slifer 3 copies of the Slifer structure deck, to now playing with an entire package. I feel like I could go full on Spellcaster here. Of course, there is going to be some issues. 2 copies of Slifer Sky Dragon, 3 copies of Soul Crossing, the quick play spell card that allows you to summon the Egyptian god cards, the 1 copy of Thunder or Force Attack, and then we're running still running the 3 copies of Reactor Slime, the 1 Metal Reflect Slime, and 3 copies, and we're now main decking 3 copies of Ashuda. Now we still run Reactor Slime in here because it's a water, it's a level 4, it's an aqua, it special summons 2 tokens, and it can turn itself into a Metal Reflect Slime, which is a level 10 aqua monster, which is pretty big for the Egyptian god plays and stuff. But we're still running this practically main core. The Shooter's in here because it's a free special summon if you control no monsters. So it's kind of like running a, how do I describe it? It's like running a 10E monster without, it's like it's still big body on the board. In addition to that, we're still running the 1 Harpy's Feather Duster, the 1 Monster Reborn, and the 1 copy of Pot of Avarice. And then we get to a lot of the new cards. So we're running the 1 copy of Moon Glacia, the 1 copy of Effect Veiler, because it's the only hand trap we have at the moment. We're running Moon Glacia and Asia in here because it's a level 8. It rips 2 cards out of your opponent's hand, and Effect Veiler is the only hand trap we currently have right now because we only got 1 structure deck. I thought Anomalous got the other one. Then we're running 3. Then for the Ice Berry, then that's pretty much it for the. Well, that's not it, but you know what I mean. We're to the Ice Barrier engine. We're running 3 copies of the Revealer. Revealer is a quick launch from the deck. It's a very powerful card to have. I personally like the idea of running 3 copies of her because she special summons Hexa. Now we're running 3 copies of Hexa. It's a level 1 monster and it's a tuner, which means its card's already big, and it's also a Foolish Burial in the deck. So having both a quick launch and a Foolish Burial in the deck's already big. Then we're running 3 copies of Speaker. Speaker is in here because it's a level 4, it's an extender, and it can turn itself into a token if need be. Then we're running 2 copies of General Wayne. It's a level 5, it searches out the spell and trap cards, and it's also a built-in Dark Loft for spell and trap cards. So still having access to a way to practically shut down a lot of decks is pretty huge. In addition to that, we're running 2 copies of Zujin. Now we're actually through Zujin into the deck for right now, for this build right now, because we don't have a lot of support. We just got like 7 structure decks worth of support here. And technically, this is a... sorry about that. So, we're running Zujin in here because it's a target that you could use. So, like, it contributes itself to summon the level 5 or the other cards from the side deck, which I'll show you later on. But it also is a target that you can revive back from the Foolish by utilizing the Foolish Burial effect from Hexa. So it can revive itself back from the graveyard, and I personally think it's a lot better than the other thing, because you already have a card that can 2 cards that can special summon themselves from the hand. This one special summons itself from the graveyard by reducing the level of the monster by 2, which is really huge because you could turn this into a level 3, and that's really good because you could turn that into a level 8 synchro monster, and so on and so forth. So that's all the new monsters. So we took out everything from the original build from the first episode and replaced it with the Ice Barrier engine. Now for the spell cards, we're running 3 Medallion. Continuing on with the Ice Barrier engine, we're running the 3 Medallion. This card is technically like your Searcher. We have Wins Over the Ice Barrier. This is technically another quick launch, but it's also can recycle back any of the cards from the graveyard. We have 3 copies of Freezing Chains of the Ice Barrier. This card is both a Monster Reborn as well as a card that can technically protect your Ice Barrier monsters from being targeted or destroyed by your opponent's card effects. So Trishula and those big monsters are automatically protected by this card, and it's utterly disgusting. For the trap cards, we're running the 1 copy of Spiritual Art Owie. Owie's in here because you have multiple ways of getting water monsters out onto the field, and it contribute that monster to practically force your opponent to discard a card from the hand. We have the 1 Soul of Mourning. It is practically an Omni-Negate, and it's a very powerful card, and then 1 copy of Reckless Greed to finish off the new main deck. Reckless Greed, I feel like you kind of want to have one in here because I don't have like Pot of Desires and stuff, and I don't have very many ways of accessing a lot of the engine. So it's the only draw spell thing here. I could have run Spellbook of Knowledge, but then again, I'm mainly running like a lot of monsters with different types here because I got one that's an Aqua. I have one that's a Worm. I have one that's a Sea Serpent. I have like several that are Spellcaster. I have a couple Warriors. Then I have another one which is another Sea Serpent. So I'm running like a combination of like 5 different types. So it makes it difficult to run those cards. Now we'll continue. Now for the extra deck, we actually now have an extra deck. So for the extra deck, we are running 3 copies of the brand new Ice Barrier boss monster, the Zero. This card is utterly disgusting because it can banish 3 cards your opponent controls, and it's a level 11, a generic level 11, so you can go straight into it. Then it has an effect where it can recycle itself, where it can trade itself in for Trishula, which we are running the 1 copy of. And it also makes Trishula 3300, and it also allows you to half the attack of all your opponent's monsters. So not only can you make it banish 3 cards of your opponent from your opponent's like hand, field, or graveyard, you could banish a 4th one, get a 3300 beater on the board, and can attack your opponent and can half the attack of all of your opponent's monsters. Then we have the 1 DeLorean, the 1 Gungnir, and the 1 copy of Bryanak. Bryanok, I can't pronounce this. Only because they're level 6s and the fact that they're all easy to summon out. And I think they're all at 1 anyway, aside from Bryanok. And I'm not wanting to run a very heavy extra deck engine. Very heavy extra deck because these are the only cards I have. I feel like running more than, I think 2 of them are limited to 1 still. So I'm not running those. Alright. Sorry for that. Side deck. We have the 1 copy of Book of Moon. We're still running the second Thunder Force and a Book of Moon in the side deck, but we traded everything out from the side deck. So we're still running the second Thunder Force and Book of Moon only because the fact that Thunder Force is just a really powerful card. We're running now 3 copies of Crackdown. Being able to technically mind control your opponent's cards is pretty disgusting to have. 3 copies of Heavy Storm Duster. This card is a spell and trap removal. 1 copy of a Pointer the Red Lotus. This card can rip a card out of your opponent's hand, and it's really good to side out for a Stolen Warning. Then we have the Dark Ruler No More. We have the Regeki. We have the Salvage, which I'm actually side decking. The only reason I'm side decking the Salvage is because technically at one point there's going to be like games 3, you're going to have something to grind with, and you're going to need something to grind with the deck with. The Heavy Storm Dusters destroy spell and trap cards, a pointer, banish a card, Dark Ruler, pretty disgusting, especially going second. Then we have the 1 copy of Twin Twisters, just more back row removal, and also a way to get cards to the graveyard. Then the last 2 cards we're running Dai Sojo and General Rhino of the Ice Barriers. Now, Saijo is in here because it protects the other Ice Barrier monsters from spell and trap effects, and General Raiho forces your opponent to either discard a card from their hand or they automatically negate any card on the field. So it's practically a walking floodgate. Now, personally, I would probably even throw this in the main deck, but I'm not doing it right. Throw it in the side deck because this is a good card like games 2 and 3. Again, it's like games 2 and 3. This card is pretty powerful. This video, I'm sorry. I am gonna, so he will be able to build his version of the deck probably like in another episode or something. But I'm just showing you guys off like what I got in this deck. I still have like 1 more product that I can open, but we haven't done the duel and stuff yet. So we'll do a duel and possibly his deck profile in another episode. And also, as another reminder, join us July 9th for we have a very special opening for you guys. Also, I'm also going to be working on pulling up another video from the archives back into actual and publish it on YouTube as well, because this is something that I've actually been holding off since like